All right, great question that came in a few hours ago that I just saw from you guys. I want to thank you again for being so engaged with our Q&As that we've been going on. There's parts of my day, I'm sure like you guys, that I feel sturdy and balanced and anchored and focused on our future. And then there's parts of my day that get a little wobbly because of the uncertainty that's happening, in life as we're trying to figure this whole thing out. Anyway, okay, so the question was, in my entire professional wrestling career, what is the one match, or do I have a match that is most meaningful? The answer to that is yes. And of course, my very first match that I ever had as a professional wrestler in San Antonio, Texas, and my last match that I had as a professional wrestler in New York City, where I started my career in the WWE, were very memorable. But the one match that I will always, always carry with me deep in my heart, in my bones, happened in Honolulu, Hawaii. And it was the first and only time that I had ever wrestled in Hawaii. And the reason why it was it was not a big pay-per-view. There were no, it was not a big television production. It was what we call a live event or a house show in the world of professional wrestling, where it's just an event. And the reason why it meant so much to me was as many of you know, I did a lot of my growing up in the islands of Hawaii. And when we were there, my grandparents, my grandfather, High Chief Peter Maivia, was a professional wrestler, the first pro wrestler to put the island of Samoa on the map. My grandmother, Leah Maivia, was his wife. And my grandfather owned a professional wrestling promotion in the islands of Hawaii that he ran. My grandmother ran it with him. My dad and my mom helped them too as well promote this wrestling. And this was in the late 70s when we were there. I was just a little boy. And they struggled, man. I mean, my grandparents struggled. My parents struggled with this promotion. They could never get it off the ground. And, we all five of us lived in a little apartment on Kapiolani Boulevard that's still there today, that I always loved driving by and looking up at all the memories. But Hawaii for me, on the multiple times we lived there, always represented struggle. It always represented tough times. It always represented just a force of our human nature of just to grit it out and try and make it. So when I say, they were struggling, we were running wrestling shows across the island in the military bases every week, which is hard to do, and maybe drawing 200-300 people. And that's with the military pass, where it's like a military and their whole family gets to go for like $5. And then once a month in Hawaii, my grandparents and my parents would run the big show. And the big show was at an arena that's still there, and it's called the Blaisdell Arena. And the Blaisdell Arena is famous in Hawaii. All the biggest acts in the world over the decades have gone there. Elvis Presley, the Rolling Stones, you name it, everybody goes. If they stop over in Hawaii, they play the Blaisdell Arena. So once a month we would wrestle at the Blaisdell Arena, not draw any people, not make any money. So it was always struggle. We wound up leaving, my parents wound up leaving Hawaii, and they took me with them, obviously, and we went to New Zealand. We lived there for a little while. And then my grandfather died in 1982. When he died, it was his dream for my grandmother to take over the promotion. My grandmother took over the promotion. She struggled with it too, as well. It got a little hot, it got a little successful. And then eventually my grandmother, of all things, she was brought up on federal charges for extortion. My grandmother was, she was like the Black Widow from Cocaine Cowboys, just minus dealing the cocaine. She was tough. She was a tough woman. Anyway, she wound up, the feds seized her assets, sent her off the island. She became homeless. And that story, I digress. That grandmother story is a story. That's a long story that one day I'll share with you guys, certainly over some Teremana tequila. I'll need a couple of those drinks before I share that story. I won't leave you hanging though. Eventually what I did, I found a legal loophole in the system when I was 19 or 20 years old. that eventually got her out of that, and we were able to get her a monthly stipend. My college professors would be very proud of me because they did tell me to go to law school, but I was like, no, I'm not smart enough and my grades suck. My study habits are the shits. Anyway, I didn't want to leave you hanging on that homeless story. She eventually got out of that. I will tell you everything down the road. That's another story. So Hawaii.